Hi, I'm Jennifer Branch. Today's Christmas card is in bright and sparkly ornaments. Let's paint. Just a quick sketch. And for this one, I highly recommend getting some ornaments from your stash and just looking at them as you paint. I think a really interesting side on that would be to put them on a mirror or something for some more sparkle. I'm using a little bit of wax crayon on this, and then I'm just going right in with red. The wax just reserves a couple places because I do have that sparkle. I'm planning on using gouache, but it's a different effect. Two different whites. And I'm going to need both of them in this. Remember to keep this one short and sweet. I'm not trying to do one of the wonderful, photographically perfect paintings because, well, if I wanted to do that, I'd take a photo. I'm trying to get the idea of the shiny, colored, mirrored glass balls that we hang on trees. So don't worry about every line. Just look at the idea of these. And this is excellent practice for round objects, for shaping, for reflections. It gets a whole lot of techniques in one. But remember, keep it short. Don't spend more than 15 minutes or so on it. Maybe 20. Short and sweet. Now for cards, I am doing a little less blurring from one color to the next. So I am going through and painting a bunch of the reds, then a bunch of the greens, or whatever. So that's just a little bit of a difference for doing cards versus doing a painting. I don't mind some blurring, especially with reflections. You do want the reflecting objects to show up on each other. Otherwise, it doesn't quite make sense. And you can see that wax resist really works. Now the next two ones are the tricky ones. I'm starting with a little bit of the nickel Azo Yellow to make a nice golden glow because I want the whole thing to be very warm. Just loosely dash the color all around. Leave lots of whites, lots of highlights. There's the reflection there. And a little bit there. Now the little ball is the same color as the bigger one. And have some fun with these. Splatter paint, and don't forget to do different combinations. Some of them might have 3, some of them may have 4 or 5. You might do a whole bunch of little balls or different shapes. Make it interesting. I'm using some burnt sienna for some nice strong darks and a tree reflection. So I have to admit the Christmas tree doesn't really reflect in these, but it's fun, isn't it? A little bit of burnt sienna with a touch of phthalo green, so it's a greeny brown. Let a little of the red bleed into the golden. Leave lots of the whites. Now I have the red reflecting on the gold. And I want a little bit of it reflecting on the green. Just a little dash does it. It doesn't take much. Now the little ball. And do different combinations of Christmas balls. Make it more interesting if you're not in a big rush to get all your cards out. Splatter paint, of course. Do 5 balls or 3 balls or any combination. Use different colors. And just have some fun with it. This is really easy to do, and you can just play with it. I'm going with this tree blurred a little bit. And I'm using some of the Cobalt Teal because it'll have that interesting grainy effect. Just dash right through that. Reflections are blurred and stripes and, all around the circumference of the ball. Just play with it a little bit. Kind of a muddy burnt sienna, a little bit of cobalt teal in there. Now I'm wanting to pull some of the darker Pthalo Green and just pull the color through. You're going to want to leave a lot of holes where the other reflections would show up. There's some light reflecting as well as the dark shadows. And while you'll see the color of the objects better with the dark shadows in this case, you're still going to want a lot of the lights. Some of the green reflecting on the golden ball. That one too. Some cobalt blue, which is going to turn it a little bit more silver than gold. Shiny metallic is good enough for this though. Still lifes are a great way to practice painting. You're painting in real life, but you can set up an arrangement. I wouldn't recommend still lifes of flowers. I'd recommend going outside and painting flowers, but still lifes of objects, you can do them 10 times from 10 different angles and really learn something about painting, and they're not going to fade like a flower would fade. And silk flowers, well, you're painting an imitation something, so it isn't really what you want. So set up in your studio a couple still lifes of Christmas ornaments and really play with it. This is a really good practice one. And you can make them as complicated or as easy as you like. I went somewhere in the middle on this one. Now notice that the tree's really blurred on this, but the fact that on the big red ornament, but the fact that it was there leaves kind of a shadow of where it was. And that is going to make it look more realistic. Just redefining that edge, making it a little bit stronger. And same thing on the opposite. Dropping in some color. I do think that ornaments would require many, many layers to get them just right, but it's kind of tricky because you want to get them just right, but you don't want the photorealism. because that's just copying how something looks. You want the feel of it, all shiny and sparkly, and where the edges really don't show. And to do that, I think many, many layers. But it's a fun one to play with for Christmas cards. I want that to flow a little bit where I want it to, not so much where it decided to. The sparkly little hangers. Pulling a little bit more color. I'm going to want some very strong darks. Reflections usually do have very strong darks. Silver or mirrors or anything like this. There'll be very strong darks and strong lights. That's what makes reflecting objects so much fun to paint and such a great challenge. Bit more green on that. Gain it back in the circle shape. Now you see the idea. I would probably, for a real painting of this, instead of just a little Christmas card sketch, I would take my time, do more layers, and that allows time for the little glints of light to show up more. And there's the tree back. Now see how I need to shape that a little bit more, because they always do shape in the concentric circles around the ball, or with the shape of whatever object you're painting. So I want my brush strokes to roughly follow that shape at all times. Some very strong darks. Redefining the hangers a little bit. Now I could stop here, or I could get out my pen and ink. Drawing nib ink as always, cartoonist ink, and I do love my dip pen. Seriously, there's just nothing like it for sketching. Everyone should learn to use one. I agree, they're not exactly pocket friendly, but they're just so much fun. Now this is a tricky one because I don't want to define every edge. I just want lost and found edges, because it would spoil the idea of the reflecting light objects if it was traced too carefully. So have some fun with that, and here's how it looks when it's finished. I hope this inspires you to paint some Christmas ornaments of some kind for someone special this holiday season. For more information, please visit my website, paintingwatercolor.com, and thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a joyful holiday. Happy painting!